Hi, thanks for being here. My name is Dr. Kerry Kriger. I am the founder and executive director of Save the Frogs, which is a nonprofit organization dedicated to protecting amphibians. Thank you so much for being here. Why doesn't everyone go ahead, chat in? Where in the world are you? You can put in your country, city, state, whatever you want. Let us know where you're at, because I have a feeling we're from a lot of different places, or where you are currently. I am currently in Miami, Florida, in the USA. So we've got St. Andrews, Scotland. Perhaps that's, let's see, okay, St. Andrews, a couple of you. England, all right, good showing from the UK. Turkey, all right, merhaba. Okay, St. Andrews, I do remember you all writing me about the Frog Society, so I'm glad that you have shown up here. All right, Italy, buongiorno. All right, good. Anyone just showing up, feel free to chat in where in the world you are. And so this is Save the Frogs office hours. This is perhaps the first time I'm doing this, so maybe it's inaugural. Perhaps I did this many years ago, but whatever the case is, it's been a long, long time. And if people show up like they are today, which I'm happy about, then we will do these more regularly. Welcome, Margot in Rochester, New York. Margot, afroghouse.org. You can check out her site, afroghouse.org. Okay, so the goal of this session is for me to answer your questions and provide advice for you. So I don't have anything prepared. Welcome, Emily from NYC. Somewhere in NYC, they have a statue up there of a frog, and it's got a little plaque that talks about amphibians and mentions savethefrogs.com. I never found out how it got there or who was responsible. I'm not sure where it is, but welcome here. All right. So I'm here, as I was saying, I'm here to answer your questions and provide advice. So that can be anything related to amphibians. That's my number one concern. But even if you branch out a little further into either anything related to nonprofits or wildlife, non-amphibious wildlife, or environmental protection, conservation, environmental careers. So if you would like me to unmute you, just lift your hand up or chat in and I can unmute you and you can talk, or you can chat in a question or statement or thoughts and I'll do my best to answer that. All right, let's start out with Save the Frogs donor and volunteer and art contest judge and artist, Margot Fass. You will need to unmute yourself. Hi, Margot. How's it going?
Fine. Emily is one of my new Cracker Jack team members, and we have another one who's in another meeting. But we're planning a permaculture tree planting at the end of March
Okay.
in the Village Arboretum, and I'm wondering if we have there are four ponds that were used for dissection in that area, in the wetlands area, and so most of our efforts has been promoting that area, promoting conservation of it and so forth. But in terms of permaculture tree planting, we only have one tree frog in this area, which is the great tree frog. And I'm wondering, can you help us make a good connection between frogs and tree planting?
Well, my immediate experience with the gray tree frogs is that right near where I grew up, there is an ephemeral pond, a pond that just fills up with water for part of the year and then dries up. And the gray tree frogs go crazy right there in the springtime during a big rain, and they're almost always hanging out in the trees immediately beside the pond. So I'm assuming that they use those trees for shelter and shelter. They're living in there. They're protected in there. They're staying cool in there, probably avoiding the hot sun. And so, from my direct experience, they need those trees, because otherwise, I assume they'd be at the trees are only on one side of the pond. So if they had a choice that they liked places with no trees, they'd probably be on the other side of the pond, just hanging out in the grass. But they're in the trees. So that's my most direct experience with that species. So I think, if there are people who are curious how tree planting relates to frogs, then you can tell them. I mean, trees even in their name, not that all tree frogs hang out in trees necessarily, but those ones do.
So generally speaking, on a scale of 1 to 10, how important is tree planting for environmental conservation?
I'd say unless you're planting trees in a natural prairie land where trees don't really belong, then I'd say it's very important. So, I mean, the trees are going to benefit lots of different wildlife species and visually for humans, given that we're living in an increasingly um, denatured landscape, we'll say, that just having trees is good for human well being as well as for maintaining our connection and remembering that nature exists, especially, you're in upstate New York, so there's a lot of nature, but the closer you get to the, eastern shoreboard and all those big cities, the less connected people are with nature. So I think it's important for humans and also for wildlife. All types of wildlife use, or not all, but many types of wildlife use the trees. And then as far as the gray tree frogs go, from my experience, they want to have trees there.
And one more, Hannah loved my apron. Thank you, Hannah. I don't want to take up too much of your time, and we do have another meeting at this time, but quickly, darn, I've forgotten it. Maybe someone else should ask a question and I'll remember.
All right. Okay. So thanks, Margot, and good luck with your event. All right. You're back. Unmute yourself once you have to unmute yourself.
Someone offered me a waterfall and uh, a water circulator and lining for a little frog pond,
Okay.
which is in an area where a box elder was just cut down. And so I've been thinking about the idea of having a conservation easement on the property that we're about to own. Is that something that you recommend as a good thing to do, and how the cost benefits of it and so forth?
Okay. Yeah, well, I heard three things. I heard a liner, a water circulator, and an easement. The liner can definitely be put to
And a
use.
waterfall, and a
Oh,
waterfall.
yeah. Oh, so I didn't know what you meant. I assume a waterfall going into the pond to either look cool or to oxygenate the water,
Yeah.
which goes back to the water circulator thing. So it's definitely not necessary. It's not going to make it more natural. So unless you have a reason to do that or really think it'll look cool or something, then I don't think you need any kind of water circulation going on. Um, for pond related stuff, I suggest you talk to Kathleen because she is a pond expert. So if you want her advice, talk to her. And as far as the liner, you only need a liner if the soil is not going to hold water without it. So that comes back to talking to Kathleen and doing a soil test to determine if the liner is necessary. It'll be useful somewhere, especially the closer you get to a building. Like if you're in a schoolyard, it's all, the land has all been constructed, and those are kind of places where you almost certainly will need a liner. As far as the easement goes, Mike Horton who's a Save the Frogs board member, he's an expert on conservation easements among other things, and he was planning to join in around 11:30. So he may or may not be here, but he would be the person to talk to about that. From my knowledge of it, it's a I guess it's a cost benefit analysis that's hard to determine the future. You want the land protected, and the easement should be able to help with that into the future. You also want the price of the land to be, what you want it to be, and easements can affect the price of land depending on who's looking at it. Some people want an
Up or
easement.
down? You're right.
From my limited experience, unknown. Some people want the easement, some people don't want the easement. So Mike would be the guy to talk to about that. So if he shows up today, we can ask him, and if not, I can put you in touch with him.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah. All right. So let's see. Let me answer these chats that have come in. Okay, Shinmu Shu. Maybe you can chat in where in the world you are. Hopefully, I said your name right. And tell us if that is Mandarin or Cantonese that we're looking at too. I can unmute you too. Okay, you want me to unmute you? Give me a thumbs up for an unmute. Okay. You have to, yeah, there you go. Hi.
Hello, I have a question, and my question is: frog and sea turtles have existed for more than 108 million years,
Yeah.
which indicates that they have survived many disasters. So we are wondering, what do you think of the probabilities that nature regions problems caused by the chemicals they are facing now will make them extinct?
Okay. Did you write me about a week ago?
Yes.
Okay, all right. And I can't remember if I responded or not, but I definitely saw that email. And if I didn't yet respond, I'm planning to. So you are in China, and so that's Mandarin. Is that correct? That I see written
Yes.
there? Okay, all right. Ni hao. There's my a little bit of Mandarin. I studied Mandarin for 3 years. I used to know about 1,000 characters, but it's almost all gone, unfortunately. So let's see. To get on to your question, I don't. If you mean will all of the species go extinct? I don't think so, because we're going to have different chemicals in different parts of the world, and different species will be affected in different ways. Some may even benefit by it. If the chemicals kill off their competitors or their predators, they may even do better. But some species will almost certainly be highly susceptible to certain chemicals. So it's a matter of identifying which species are being impacted. What are the location? I'd think start with, what do you think the most dangerous chemicals are based on either their toxicity, or not either or, but based on their toxicity, their the quantity of usage, and the time of year when they're being used, if they're entering the water supply, what amphibians are active in those times of years and being exposed, and then what is the impact that they have. So, given that we've got billions, perhaps, or we'll say at least hundreds of millions of tons of chemicals entering the environment every year, we still have frogs and we still have sea turtles. So I don't think they're going to all go extinct just from that cause. But of course, there's lots of things other than chemicals alone that are causing problems. So, but I do think it's an important area of study to determine which are the worst chemicals, which are the most threatened species, and what can be done to reduce to ideally ban the worst chemicals, reduce the need for the chemicals, increase the education related to the usage of the chemicals and increase the regulation and enforcement regarding those chemicals, and of all those different things that we can do, determining which is the most likely to lead to success. And for me, from Save the Frogs perspective, I like education because nobody can stop us from educating people. But there are plenty of politicians who do a really good job stopping regulation. And so when it comes to dealing with the government in this juncture of my environmental career, I prefer to avoid the government and focus on the things that I can get done without large, slow, problematic bureaucracies. So,
Okay, thank you for your answers.
yeah. All right. Thanks for being here. Can you tell me how you heard about Save the Frogs?
Yes, I have I have a challenge in my university schools, and I found the Save the Frogs website in that moment, and I learned a lot from that.
Okay. Excellent. All right. Well, good luck with everything. Thanks for being here.
Thank you. Bye bye.
All right. Side Jen. Stay on if you can. Shay. So, and also for all of you out there, including Shin Mu, Save the Frogs Day, the world's largest day of amphibian education and conservation action, the 13th annual Save the Frogs Day will take place the last Saturday of April 2021. So I encourage all of you to take part and spread the word. And we have not had any activity in China in many years, so it'd be great if you guys were taking part. And it could easily be because of the language barrier, because we have not put out a lot of Chinese language materials. Maybe that's it, but we're certainly China is an important place for amphibians, and a place where there's definitely a lot of not only chemicals but habitat destruction and people eating amphibians and raising non-Native American bullfrogs on frog farms there. So lots of amphibian conservation to be done there. Okay, let's see. The other thing is on the Save the Frogs website, all of you should know this, or I want you all to know this. Save the Frogs Academy. I'm going to go ahead and chat that in right here. www.savethefrogs.com/academy. And for all of you, there should be a link right at the top there that gets you 28 days free Save the Frogs Academy access. There are online courses for everybody from professional amphibian biologists to kids, students, teachers of all ages. So go in there, check out Save the Frogs Academy. And let's see, let me look at some of these other questions that have come in. What's my favorite type of amphibian? I like the amphibians that are existent and not extinct. I like the ones that have been saved, because that makes me feel good. But you're probably asking, what's my favorite species of amphibian? And for that, let me do something right here. Let me, let's see, all you people who have just joined us, or everyone who is currently joining us, go ahead and chat in where in the world you are. What country are you in? What state are you in? Let me go ahead and share my screen right here and show you all something. All right, can you give me a thumbs up? Can you see my screen right here? My screen is coming through. Okay, good. So we have a search bar right here. Okay, so I'm going to just see how well this works. I've never searched for favorite amphibian. I can't see if I typed that incorrectly because something's blocking it, but let's see what we've got here. I'm looking for a certain article here, and it's not right there. That's fine. Let me go ahead and do this. Bridge. All right, interview with Save the Frogs founder, Dr. Kerry Kriger from 2009. What's your favorite frog? So I will answer this question, but I'll also chat in that URL to everybody. I'll let you all read it later. But as you can see, maybe you saw it, is that my favorite frog, I like this guy, the southern orange-eyed tree frog, who's hanging out right here in our logo. He's there for a reason because he looks really cool, and he's right here on top of our homepage too. And those frogs are from Eastern Australia. I spent 4 years there doing my PhD research on the amphibian disease chytridiomycosis. And I spent a lot of time out in the rainforest near the waterfalls. And these frogs, the southern orange-eyed tree frogs, like to hang out on the rocks next to the stream, especially near the waterfalls. And they come out when it pours rain, oftentimes deep in the rainforest. And if you've ever hung out by a waterfall in the pouring rain, deep in the rainforest in the middle of the night, where there's southern orange-eyed tree frogs calling like, then it's a pretty cool experience. So I really like those frogs, and I'll say that's my favorite frog. Aside from them, as a group of frogs, I like the glass frogs, which are in Central and South America, and also because they're really cool looking. So I do tend to like the cool looking frogs, but I also do my best to save any frog, toad, newt, salamander, Sicilian, regardless of how cool they look. All right, so stop sharing my screen. Okay, so let's keep on going down this list. All right, Emily Johnson Earday has a question. So Emily, if you're there, then you can, I'm going to ask you, okay, you are unmuted. How's it going?
Yeah. Hi.
Hi.
My question was kind of for the group, if that's okay. I was really curious, since we have all of these young environmentalists, what made you find your love for environmentalism? Was it a story that you were read, or a book that you read, or a personal experience? I'd love to hear from people in the chat or via the video.
All right, so if anyone out there wants to be unmuted to answer that, how did you find your interest in environmentalism, love of amphibians? You can either chat it in or raise your hand. I think there may also be a, I don't know if it's there, like a raise your hand option that, oh, I do see Jessica, is that, to answer this question, let me see what's, okay, let's get Jessica on here. Lower your hand. All right, hi, Jessica.
Hi. So I'm president of the St. Andrew's Frog Society. And here we sort of like our interest around saving frogs and protecting frogs in the UK all sort of comes from frog memes and like sort of the online subculture around frogs and like little cute frogs. So I guess that's probably what inspires us all. And yeah, we sort of have a massive group chat where we just sort of send those pictures, and it, you know, makes us happy. So then we want to send protect the frogs and so on and so forth. So yeah, I think that's been quite, the internet's been quite useful in like raising awareness of that.
All right, maybe you could like gather up a collection of your favorite frog memes. We'll say non-controversial frog memes, and then we could have a frog meme web page on savethefrogs.com. I can just put them all into a gallery. Okay, good. All right, anyone else want to tell us how you got interested in the environment, or anything about your love of amphibians? Maybe even some of you young frog enthusiasts out there, how you got interested in this So if you do want to talk, just raise your hand or chat it in. Okay, so don't be shy. Don't be shy. Let's go on. You all, if you want to answer that question later on, you're welcome to. Emily, is there anything else you want to say? Or maybe you can tell us, how did you get into frogs and a frog house?
Can you hear me? Yes.
Yeah.
Hello. Yeah, thank you, Martha, for putting that in the chat. And where are you? I forgot your name already, but thank you for sharing your frog meme experience. I was raised by a veterinarian, so animal conservation has always been a part of my life. We have like rescued wild animals, mostly mammals, but frogs and amphibians in particular came from meeting Margot and working with Margot on a frog house, which is an amphibian education and conservation place here in New York.
Okay. And do you have experience rescuing amphibians? Like if a hurt amphibian came your way, would you have
I don't
experience with that?
personally.
Okay.
I don't have any amphibian experience in that way.
Okay.
So
Because
my
I do
advice
get,
would be get them to a vet as quickly as possible if you see
yeah.
an injured animal.
Okay. Because people write to Save the Frogs occasionally about, with an emergency. And I
Yeah,
unfortunately I don't have the amphibian vet experience and don't know. There's not that many amphibian vets out there, so I usually don't
that's
know where to
true.
send them.
Yeah, that's something I could definitely research.
Okay. All right. Let's see. Anyone else out there? Send in your questions. I'm going to keep moving down this list. In Australia, does the population of cane toads damage the other species of amphibians around them? What can be done to protect the rarer species? So the cane toads got introduced to Australia in 1935, I believe is the year. Not 100% certain on that, but there were perhaps 104 of them brought over, maybe in two different waves of them, to eastern Australia around Townsville, I believe, and then they have since marched or hopped their way across much of northern Australia. And yeah, they cause problems. I'm assuming that as the years go by, except for in the new places where they're invading, usually as time goes by, the wildlife learn to live together a bit better. But the initial damage certainly is heavy in that the cane toads, if there are hundreds of millions of cane toads and they all weigh on average maybe half a kilo, we're talking about 100 million kilos of biomass that has been turned into cane toad that used to be native Australian biomass. So, you know, they're competing for food, they're competing for habitat, and amphibians do like to eat whatever they can put in their mouth. Living animals, carnivorous. So they're going to be eating native amphibians and plenty of other wildlife. And they're eating other wildlife, and that's affecting the food web in various ways. What can be done to protect the rarer species? I'm not sure if you mean with respect to the cane toads or just in general. What can be done to protect rare species from cane toads? It's not easy because there are so many cane toads. So you could do cane toad removals. If you're going to do that, it's not going to have that, it's going to be a lot of work, and it's not going to have that big an impact unless you're really focused. Like, say you have a rare species and you identify their most critical habitat that's most impacted by the cane toads, you could do cane toad removals there, and that would help out. Aside from that, I'm not really sure. Aside from always just ensuring that the other threats to amphibians are minimized. So amphibians face a lot of threats. If there's cane toads and there are people mowing the grass, or if there's dogs and cats on the loose, or whatever other threat you can think of, then if you can't manage the cane toads, maybe you can manage some of those other threats. All right, Yara Xavier from India, namaste. Go ahead, chat in. Where in the world, where in India are you? Sir, I am keen to follow your footsteps, but can you please suggest how to go about it? I am just a toddler in your field. How is your beginning some experience of yours to initiate this movement? Okay, Yara. So if you would like to talk, raise your hand. I see you out there because I'm curious to know, like, that's kind of a broad question. I don't know where in your career you are. But let's say, I guess, let me just go general. Assuming you're a student and that you're either in high school or university, or let's say for anyone in high school, or even, however, primary, secondary, take biology courses. Try to get your teachers to focus on amphibians. Take advantage of Save the Frogs Academy and the savethefrogs.com website, because if you spent even 1 hour per week reading or watching videos or learning from the Save the Frogs website, you'd be way ahead of most people, certainly with regards to amphibians. Save the Frogs Academy, go there and, take advantage of it, learn a lot on your own, so it doesn't even matter what they're teaching in school. But then in school, they're going to give you the chance to develop your own projects at some point. And when possible, can you take advantage of that time to make your project related to amphibians? That's what I'd suggest. Can you volunteer? Are there amphibian biologists in your part of the world? Probably. Look for the big university in your state, go to their website, find out if there's someone doing amphibian research, or just contact the biology department, tell them whatever it is you're interested in, and say, who here does that? Contact them, see if they ever go out into the field, see if they can use a volunteer. Contact your favorite environmental charity. Do they need volunteers? It's going to help a lot if you know something about the charity to begin with, if you know what they do, if you have something in mind already, a way that you can help. So for me, I studied mechanical engineering in university. I did not study biology. I had very little biology experience in primary, secondary, elementary, middle, high school, and university. Almost no biology. So what I did immediately when I finished university and decided I wanted to go into environmental career was to contact university researchers who were doing field biology and say, I want to come volunteer for a few months with you. And that's what I did. And that's where my first experience came from. So I think volunteering is important. Self-study is important. And then when it does time to go to university, if you choose to go to university, then figure out what branch of environmental conservation is of interest to you. It may not be biology. There's also environmental law. There's all types of careers related to the environment that are not necessarily biology or biological research. It's good to have some knowledge of many different aspects of environmental conservation. So I would just keep going with whatever is of most interest to you. Whatever the things are that keep you interested and keep you learning, those are the things I would focus on. And I'd also say come back to Save the Frogs office hours and check in here and let me know what you're up to, and then I can give you more specific advice as things go on. All right, next question, Pat. Can I say a few words about chytridiomycosis and how's the situation around the world and avoiding containment, or I'd say we need to contain it. Let's see. First, I'm going to welcome Mike Horton out there. Thanks for joining in, Mike. We could have used you about 20 minutes ago. There was a question about conservation easements, and that was from Margot. I can put you in touch with her. I believe she owns some land and is working on restoring the land with ponds and tree planting and is considering an easement. All right, so chytridiomycosis, how's the situation around the world? Chytridiomycosis is causing a lot of problems for amphibians. I don't have up-to-date info at the moment with, I'll say, recent developments. I'll say that I don't hear a lot about rapid, massive die-offs of amphibians caused by chytridiomycosis, which either means that I'm not getting that news or that they're happening less frequently, which would make sense to me because a disease, as we're aware of, is going to spread around the world pretty quickly, okay, if it has the ability to do that, and it's going to cause a lot of damage at first, and it'll cause continuous problems going on. But from my experience, the biggest problems are going to be when it first arrives at a place. And so chytrid has arrived at many, many places, but there's still plenty of places where there have not been die-offs reported, where the chytrid could certainly do damage based on the environmental climatic envelope. Is it a cool, wet place? That's where the chytrid does the most damage. So I will, though, try to get an update on that. All right, so let's see. Martha Stops asks, how many species of frogs are there in the world? Where would I go to get that information? So frogs, first off, let's say frogs and toads, and then we'll be able to get an answer easier. Or if you mean how many amphibians, we'll be able to get an answer even easier. So let's go ahead and do that. I'm going to share my screen and tell you what I would do to answer this question. I'm going to guess there's 8,500 amphibian species known, and that there's about 5,000, call it even 5,500 frogs and toads, okay? Because all toads are frogs. So let's just go ahead and put them together. That's my guess. Let's go find out. So I'm going to share my screen. And give me a thumbs up if you can see my screen, please. All right, so we're there. I probably don't ever need to ask that again because it always seems to work, fortunately. And let's go ahead and click amphibiaweb.org. And here we are on amphibiaweb.org, a useful site created and maintained, I believe, by the University of California at Berkeley. And we can go to the bottom, and right there it says current number of amphibian species, 8,250. All right, so there's our answer for amphibian species, known amphibian species. And then let's go to search the database. So we want family. Oh no, we don't want family. We want the order Anora, because that's the frogs and the toads. So where do I search? Okay, so now I'm going to click search. And here we go. Whoa. So there's 7,278 frogs and toads species. Okay, so that's the vast majority. That leaves only about 1,200 salamander, newts, and Sicilian species. So let's see if that's correct. Let's go ahead and check out the caudates, the tailed amphibians. 759 species. So that leaves us with 500 Sicilian species. Could that be right? I'm not, see how good my math is. 213. Okay. So I wasn't keeping all those numbers in my head. But so now we've learned 4 things. We've learned how many amphibian species there are, how many Sicilian species there are, how many newt and salamander species there are. Let's go back and see what that number was. All right. Okay. So 200 plus Sicilians, 700 plus newts and salamanders, and 7,250 or so frog and toad species. Now, what else could you do on this site of interest? You could click this map to search by country. You could click on your country, your continent, and then your country, maybe even your state. All right, I'm in Florida right now. So look, there's 32 frog species, 32 salamander species. You can sort it to see their threat status. That was not it. All right, maybe you can't do that easily, but you could export this one way or another to get it all into a spreadsheet. So you can even click on species of interest to you and learn some stuff about that. Okay, so this is my aside from savethefrogs.com. That's my #1 go-to amphibian related site. All right, so I hope that was useful. Let's see. So, let's see. We have a lot of questions here, which is a good thing. Before I do that, though, Mike Horton, since you're on here, and I don't know how much time you have, you want to give a brief introduction, who you are and what your environmental expertise is, and let people know that you can answer questions related to that? All right, you should be able to unmute yourself.
Yeah,
You're
now
on.
I can. Can you hear me now?
I sure can.
So yeah, I'm Mike Horton. I'm a board member for Save the Frogs. I am an ex-environmental regulator. I worked for 26 years for the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service, conserving endangered species, and was involved in some of the pesticide work, which has been found to be pretty devastating to amphibians. And I started in the early 90s, about 90, out west, working old growth timber issues with the northern spotted owl and marbled murrelet and what was known as the old growth timber wars back then. And retired about 5-6 years ago, and have been doing some conservation projects on the side ever since, and working with Kerry on trying to advance amphibian conservation. So, and I'm sorry, Kerry, did you ask me to talk about anything else?
I think that's good. All right, thank you.
Mm-hmm.
All right, so Shinmu Shu, who is on today, she had a she's doing some pesticide research, I believe, in China. So maybe it would be good for you to connect. All right. Sorry, I got something flying around here. It's Florida. Okay. All right, so let's keep on moving down this. Yeah, all you should be able to individually chat each other, so feel free to chat amongst yourselves. All right, how to identify a poisonous frog? I would say in your part of the world, get online and do a search for the amphibians of your local region, and I would start there. And you can, not always, but most of the, or I'll say a lot of the poisonous frogs are brightly colored, aposematic coloration. So that's the first thing that I would do. I'm assuming that you are in South Asia, but I could be completely wrong. So, in Central America, the poison dart frogs do tend to be brightly colored. Other parts of the world, that's not always the case. And there are certainly toads, none of which, or I'll say not none, most of which are not brightly colored, and they are poisonous. So there are lots of amphibians that have toxins on their skin, and you can usually, if you know what amphibians are in your region, you can research each one. And it's often the entire family of amphibians, whatever family they're in, they may all have poison. All right, so Jessica Johnson asks, I have a few questions. What can we do as a society to protect the frogs in the UK? Do you mean as the Frog Society of the University of St. Andrews, or as the Human Society, all of us? Let me unmute you here.
As we sort of meant as the St. Andrews Frog Society, so
Okay.
local to us.
Yeah. All right, so what do I think about frog memes? Yeah, so I'm sure there are all kinds of memes, of which the most famous one is a meme that is not a cool frog meme. It did not start as a bad frog meme, but it got taken over by people who like to turn things into controversial, offensive memes. So it just depends. I don't look at too many memes in general, but I'm sure there are some interesting, funny memes. So I guess that once you make that collection of frog memes, I can give you my thoughts on them. And on that, let's see, what do I think is good for raising awareness and love for frogs? And do you have a favorite? So we already talked about my favorite frog. So let's see, as a frog society to protect frogs. Okay, so if you go down to Keswick, you know where Keswick is in the Lakes region, I believe it's Lake District of the UK. If you can ever take a trip down to Keswick in the time of year when the amphibians are crossing the road, then you could meet up with a Save the Frogs supporter there who works with the variety of UK amphibian charities helping to get amphibians safely across the road. And I'm sure that up in your part of the UK, that would be just as useful. And I'll say that the UK is probably the most highly advanced and organized place in the world for helping amphibians safely cross the road and educating drivers about the threats that they face on the road. So I think that would be cool. Now, being that you're maybe in a part of the world with a lot of lakes already, I'm not sure how important it is to build ponds, but if there has been a lot of habitat destruction where you are, then building a pond, getting your university involved would be great if you can get university approval to build a pond. And even if there are a lot of ponds around, it's still good just for educating people and getting them outside and connecting them with nature to actually build a pond. But let's see, other stuff, there's just straight up education. Anywhere in Europe is, has a history of environmental damage because there's been so many people living there for so long. So educating people to protect what still remains is super important. And in most of the parts of the world, people don't think much about amphibians. You could get Save the Frogs Day officially recognized by your mayor or your, government bodies or highest government official that you want to contact. And we have some templates for that. We've gotten Save the Frogs Day recognized in a variety of places. So basically, I can send you, if it's not on our site, I can send you the, an example of a proclamation that's come out in the past, and you would just change that up to kind of make it about your local amphibians and send it in with a letter on behalf of your frog society. And I think that you would get a good response from that. What are the best ways to fundraise and raise awareness? So let's break that down. If you go to Save the Frogs Academy, how about let's go to Save the Frogs Academy right now. So I'm sharing my screen. I'm going to click on Academy and see what happens here. All right, here we go. So where would this be? You know what? I don't have to find it because our search tool up here is so good. Let's type in fundraise. And so we have a volunteer opportunity for a fundraiser. And let's see what else we've got. Fundraising 101. Learn how to raise money for a cause. Okay, so let's see what that is. All right. Look at that. There's a video right there. Fundraising 101. Learn how to raise money for a cause. So I'm going to chat this in to everybody. And I'll say start by watching that video. And then I know that there's even more on here. There's one called, let's just type in crowd and see what comes up. So here's crowdfunding psychology with a downloadable PDF from Nick Kalenda. Let's make sure it's on there so you can go check out Nick, Complete Psychology of Fundraising. There's that URL. And now let's, there should be at least one other relevant fundraising. Create your own personalized fundraising web page. Okay, so what I've been doing the last 2 days is completely rebuilding the Save the Frogs donation page. And once I have that done, what I can do for you and your Frog Society is to build you all a St. Andrews Frog Society fundraising page on our site, a donation page, so that if you want to raise money for Save the Frogs, you can send people to that. If for other stuff though, I'll get to that in a second. So I'm looking for one more. Save the Frogs Academy fundraising class video. So this is the first thing that I had thought of. All right, so here we are in Save the Frogs Academy, fundraising 101, how to raise money for a cause. This is not it. Let's see. All right, so let's go back to the Academy, and I'm going to find this because we actually had a very good discussion. Okay, I'll try to find it and I'll send it to you, but we had for Save the Frogs scholarship recipients, we had a meeting, something like this, and we had a pretty in-depth discussion on how to fundraise for your project. So I'll try to find that too. Let me unshare this screen, and I'll say, if you want to fundraise, you've got in-person events, which are not going to be happening in the next, not many of them anyway, in the next 6 months at least, okay? So if you were in person, hold an event, put a table up at your university, get a nice looking info table with cool frogs out in a busy place, and put out a frog jar and sell some frog shaped cookies or whatever you want to do to raise money like that. Then there's online stuff, and for that, have a donation page. So if you all know how to build a website, especially if it's in WordPress, I know how to get a donation page up there pretty quickly. And that is on your own page. It'll look how you want it to look, and it'll have a minimum of fees taken. Otherwise, you could go to one of the famous crowdfunding platforms, such as, I won't even name them, you know what they are, you see them all the time. People are fundraising on their favorite crowdfunding platform. Go to my page, it'll say my goal is $500, 13 people have donated and raised $375, or whatever. That's one way to do it. And then also there's the social media channels such as Facebook and Instagram, which fortunately have made it fairly easy to fundraise for your favorite cause. So that wouldn't be for, you wouldn't be able to do it directly for your own group. But if you wanted to raise money for Save the Frogs, then you would just pick Save the Frogs as your dedicated charity and hold a fundraiser probably through your personal page. But for if you want to raise money for your own project, if you want to raise money straight to your own web page, then ideally someone in your group knows WordPress, and get at least a minimum site there, and then I can provide some advice with getting a donation page up on WordPress. Ideally, you would have a Stripe account to process people's credit cards. Okay, so I hope that helped, and I will try to get that other fundraising video up there. All right, Luke. Oh, let me see. Sorry, see how many questions there are here. All right, we got a lot of questions. It's good. All right, our Zoom Idemir. Amphibians have such an amazing life cycle. It's an incontestable fact that all amphibians play numerous roles in the environment. What are the separate roles of each life stage of an amphibian's life cycle in the nature, and how each stage is beneficial for the environment? So I'll say when they are eggs in the water, those egg masses are going to be food for a variety of wildlife. Tadpole, well, at all stages, amphibians are food. Okay? They're often going to be eating plants, animals, algae, but they're also serving as food for birds, snake, fish, dragonflies, beetles, monkeys, and lots of different wildlife, and humans as well, at any stage. When they're tadpoles, they're also filtering the algae in the water and purifying water, which helps us if we're dependent on water from filtration systems. And let's see, when they're adults, on top of being part of the food web specific to us, beneficial for the environment, beneficial for humans, they're reducing the damage to the crops that we depend on for our food. They're serving as natural pesticides so that we don't have to use chemical pesticides. So that'll be my, I'll just leave it there because we have a lot of other questions going on. Okay, so St. Andrew's Frog Society, and sorry if I don't have your precisely correct name, 43 members in our Frog Society. I'll say good job there, congratulations. Okay, so what I'd suggest for fundraising for frog conservation, for more of that, if you guys want, then we can set up a one of these Zoom calls with your group, and we could just have a pure fundraising discussion, especially if you already have some ideas on things you want to do, and then I can give more specific advice on those things. And ideally, I could even record it, put it into Save the Frogs Academy for the future benefit of other amphibian conservationists. All right, Zhu Wen. Advice on what to do in your daily life to protect frogs. I would just go straight to Save the Frogs Academy and start learning, because there's so many ways to answer that, and there's so many different things that we can do. And looking through the Save the Frogs site, you'll get inspired by things that have been done by members of the Save the Frogs community. What about building school wetlands? I'll say if you can get your school to approve a wetland, then yes, that would be awesome. So that's going to come down to the how good you are getting through your school's bureaucracy, because someone's going to have to sign off approval on that, and some school administrators like that, and some school administrators don't want to deal with it. So will it be beneficial? Yes, certainly if there's amphibians around that would make use of those wetlands, and I know that the students will be more interested in amphibians when that all comes to pass, and when there are amphibians or more amphibians living on the school property. All right, Martha says, I entered an English writing competition called 500 Words, and an author read out the winning story about amphibians in the jungle. Okay. Maybe you can send us that essay. We did have one year ever, maybe it was 2010, we had a Save the Frogs essay contest. And I believe the topic was a world without frogs. Not a happy thought, but everyone wrote in some, it was basically write a page on that topic. All right, Siri Yoshita asks, why did I only want to protect amphibians and particularly frogs? I wouldn't say that I only wanted to protect amphibians. It's that I wanted to, original goal was to protect nature and wild places. Even, I'll say even more so than wildlife. I just wanted places left on the planet that felt natural. Maybe from my own selfish human perspective, I want a place in the world that I can go to that is natural, because those are the places that I tend to like most. And then breaking it down further was, how do I accomplish that? And it just happened to be that my assumption was a career in wildlife biology was the way to go about accomplishing that. And I do like wildlife, so let's see. My first experience was with endangered birds in Hawaii. And as I moved on in my environmental career, getting a bit more knowledge about exactly what I wanted to do, I found out that frogs were rapidly disappearing, and frogs live in streams. Some of them do, and I really like hanging out at streams. So it just hit me, hey, frogs are in trouble. Frogs hang out at streams. I'm going to study frogs. I'll be hanging out at streams and doing something good for the planet. And that's how things got started. And then once I had my fundamental amphibian experience and knowledge and love of frogs that developed from spending a lot of time with amphibians, I felt that I should continue on the amphibian conservation path, because I was already far down that path, and that's where my expertise is. And the frogs still need saving, and I have never felt any need to diverge from that. From as far as getting good stuff done for the environment, that's for the last 17 years remained my number one way to get stuff done, and my goal is to get as much done as I can. All right, what can we, let's see, sorry. Okay, Martha asks, how long have I had my job and why did I choose it? I have had this job since I founded Save the Frogs officially on May 8th, 2008, according to the government, but I started Save the Frogs a couple months before that happened. So we'll say since 2008. And prior to 2008, I guess you could say my job was researching amphibians as part of my PhD degree at Griffith University in Gold Coast, Australia from 2003 to 2007. And I chose it because, let's see, why did I choose Save the Frogs? Because I didn't want to work for the government or a university, because there's a lot of bureaucracy. And I had previous experience working for myself, by myself, or I'll say for myself, teaching as a private tutor in math and science, teaching kids, teenagers, university students, and I liked working for myself. And I, fortunate for Save the Frogs, did not know anything about the nonprofit world, and because if I had known, I may have not gone down that path. But I didn't know. I just thought the best thing I can do is start a nonprofit and save the frogs. So that's what I did, and I'm happy I did it. It's not the easiest path, but if you're dedicated and you want to do exactly what you want to do and not work for someone who tells you what you need to do what they want you to do. Even if you work for someone, you should still be able to steer things in a direction that you like. And if you can't, you're probably in the wrong job. But Save the Frogs has allowed me to focus on the environmental issues of most importance to me and the methods for accomplishing them that I think are the best ways to get things done. All right, so everyone, afroghouse.org, that's Margot's organization, and on Instagram, a.frog.house. Go check them out. All right, Mary Tarasova asks, why Save the Frogs? Why not Save Amphibians? Because it just wouldn't be as good a name as Save the Frogs, but we do focus on amphibians. We're not just focused on frogs. So if there's an amphibian in need, then we're certainly open to helping them out. But for a name, the original name was going to be Save the Toads, and the first sticker that we ever created was not a Save the Frog sticker. It was actually a Save the Toad sticker, but I thought that Save the Frogs would get more attraction because people like frogs more than they like toads, I think. That was my thought. So we changed it to Save the Frogs. All right, Luke from Ohio built a frog pond at his house and is now moving to Tucson. All right, so I'll say hopefully you can find a new homeowner or renter who cares about those frogs, or at a minimum, leave some information there, or even put up a sign, like some kind of semi-permanent sign with a little bit of frog education right beside the pond, so that whoever shows up there will at least have some awareness about the frogs. How can I build a frog toad habitat in the desert? You can definitely do that. And let's see, Save the Frogs has been involved in the creation of ponds in southeastern Arizona, up in the, can't remember which mountains, but you got the Chiricahua leopard frogs and maybe Yavasapai. I'm probably saying that wrong. You have maybe 2 or 3 different leopard frog species. And I'd say that it would be a good idea, assuming that group pond building takes place in 2021, go volunteer at one of those events. So if you email me, then I can, or let me do something here. All right, let me share my screen. All right, so here we've got wetland restoration and training.com. And that is the website of Tom Beebig Hauser. All right, so I just chatted in that link, and I would go contact him and say you live in Arizona, or you will live in Arizona. Can he please keep you posted if there are any Arizona wetland events going on? Maybe he has a newsletter up here too, so go sign up for the newsletter. That's what I do. And on that note, there's also, if you're really into wetlands, then I would go to this site, aswm.org. That's the Association of State Wetland Managers. And they have these upcoming webinars. You may have to be a member, but they've got these webinars that happen like very often, and with lots of different aspects of wetland construction, management, legal issues. And if you're really interested, then I would try to join some of those webinars. And you can also write to them and say anything going on in Arizona, because if you get some on the ground wetland experience, that would be good. But even if not, yeah, try to build a pond in the desert, and hopefully something will show up there. It would be good to know what lives in the area, because if there's nothing anywhere nearby, nothing's going to show up, and we don't want you translocating frogs there. We want you to have a habitat that amphibians are naturally attracted to. All right, so Mr. Nelson, Chuck Nelson would like to share Frogland game. And let's see. All right, Chuck's a recently retired teacher, created the game to enlighten his students about frog challenges in the world. That sounds pretty awesome. Can I unmute you? Are you able to talk for a second?
Yeah, can you hear me?
Yeah, all right, thanks for the offer. Can you tell us?
I can share it on a screen if you want.
Yeah, do it. Do you have screen share ability right now? Is it giving you that option?
I'll see what I can do here. So I'm disabled from doing it.
Yeah, you should have it now if you go accept that.
Oh, okay. Do you see like a big blank? Oh, there you go.
Here it comes.
So that's like the title. Do you see the title?
I see it, yeah.
Okay, so basically it's got the introduction, it's got how to set up the lesson, it's got the rules. But in general, the kids just work their way through these lily pads.
Okay.
And if you go to each lily pad, there's some information I read to them. They roll the dice. If they get caught by the dissector, I read them a question about frogs that they have to answer. If they answer it correctly, they survive. If not, they're out of the game. And so there's a number of questions depending on what they roll. They also are given cards. So they get 3 lucky cards. They can play a lucky card. If they get an answer wrong, they can stay alive. They have health cards. If you run out of health cards, then you're gone. You're dead. They have adaptation cards. They can play those to get out of certain situations. These are just sort of the questions as a dissector that I might read to them. And they have to be able to answer them. And they get this information through the game itself.
Okay.
So I can just show you a few of the little lily pad things. So one has to do with fungal disease. One has to do with invasive animals, habitat destruction, pet industry, natural predators, climate change, invasive trout, talks about that. But again, they have to roll the dice, and they play as little table groups. Pesticides, food industry, pollutants. Usually takes them about 1 hour for the class to get through the game. Acid rain. I know I'm going really fast, but careless people. And then at the end, if they survive. So I'm gonna, how do I unshare this so that you can?
At the bottom of the screen, it should give you an option.
I'm looking, how come I can't? Can you take over?
Let's see, I probably can. Let me,
I don't want to be in charge here.
Go. Let me go like this, boom. All right, and now.
Oh, now I see it.
Share. Okay, so now we're all back. Okay, so good job making that game. I'm curious, what's the format what would be the deliverable to, like, I mean, that was a PowerPoint presentation. It looked, I mean, I could put that in Save the Frogs Academy in the teacher's course, but what are you expecting that the teacher actually receives in order to play the game?
They would get all these PowerPoints, and they'd have to print out the cards so that they could give them to the kids and stuff.
And does it come with instructions on all that?
Yeah, at the very beginning, I had instructions. I kind of blew through that really fast.
Yeah. Okay. Does it need to be a PowerPoint, or can it be exported as a PDF?
I don't really know. I created it as a PowerPoint.
Okay.
I can't really market it because I just pulled pictures off the internet.
I saw that.
Yeah, and it would be so much work for me to try and
Yeah, well, you can go. There's free. Let's. All right. There are free stock photo sites such as unsplash.com. So that's what I'd probably do is just go get your free stock images, stock vector images. Maybe a little harder to find, but unsplash.com. You just type in frog into the search bar and go pick it out. That's what I'd suggest. Because there was one that was straight out of National Geographic, I know.
Yeah. I only used it in my classroom, so I wasn't too concerned.
Yeah. On our site, it would be good if it were all legal photos.
Right.
So, but I mean, if you have it up on a website, I can certainly link people to it. If we put it up, I could put it in Save the Frogs Academy, but then it would ideally have all legal use photos. I also have photos too, but I'd just start with Unsplash. And then, yeah, it could be exported as a PDF, but I could do that too. So as long as it has instructions.
It does.
Okay. Yeah.
I don't know how to share it with you exactly. But...
Oh, just send me an email, or if you have Dropbox, if it's a really big file, just send me an email and we'll figure it out. So I'll type in my email or everyone. All of you have my email. Just
okay.
reply to
Shall I mute now?
Yeah. All right.
Okay.
Thanks. Good job making that too. I'm curious. Everyone chat in. How did you hear if you heard about this in any way other than the Save the Frogs newsletter, go ahead and chat in how you heard about this event. And we will be ending soon. It looks like we're right near the end. Mike Horton says the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service has programs in many areas of the U.S. that work with schools to create schoolyard wetlands for amphibians. You can contact your state office's Partners for Fish and Wildlife program. Go to fws.gov to find your local office contact info. All right, and if you're in Arizona, contact the Tucson Herpetological Society, tucsonherpsociety.org. All right, thanks for that, Mike. Okay, so it looks like our last question, we'll go ahead and call this the end. Ricarda says, what would you consider as one of amphibians' greatest danger? What should we pay the most attention to promote and save amphibians worldwide? I think that going by the science, it would be habitat destruction. So anything that causes habitat to get destroyed or degraded would be a problem. The fix would be to protect the habitat, to restore degraded habitat, and to create habitat where there is no longer habitat, or where you think that adding habitat, I guess that would just be a restoration. I don't know. Create some habitat in one way or another, but make sure that you're doing it in a proper place where you're not just putting a frog habitat over some other wildlife habitat after you've considered the pluses and minuses, costs and benefits of doing what you're going to do. So start with habitat, and then it comes down to thinking about what is in your local area. If you're going to be helping local amphibians, habitat may not be the problem, though there's, in most places where there's humans, there's going to be some habitat issues. But you have to look into what are causing the amphibians in your part of the world to become endangered, and then deal with those on a local level. All right, so let's call that good. This was Save the Frogs Office Hours. I am Save the Frogs founder, Dr. Kerry Kriger. I hope you enjoyed this as much as I did. I think it was a excellent session, and therefore we will do this again, and I'll announce another time in 2020. Let's definitely have at least one more of these. Thanks for being here, and thanks for helping to save the frogs, and I hope to see you soon. Bye.